How's it guys, this is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, I'm going to be going over the ultimate guide to blank game week 36. This week what I've kind of done is I've combined the ultimate guide as well as the game week preview into one single video. So this video is going to basically cover all the talking points relating to the upcoming blank game week 36. So on the preview side of things, we're going to be covering the usual captaincy, the usual talking points that are a little bit more specific to the upcoming game weeks, and then we're also going to get the ultimate guide view of things where we're going to look at the fixtures and do quite an in-depth analysis, not only from an attacking but also a defensive point of view. The other talking points covered in the video include what Man City options you guys should be looking at, as well as which budget striker you guys should be focusing your attention on from now to the end of the season. So that's something you're interested in? Sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. So going over the fixtures, first of all, for the upcoming blank game week 36, I'm not going to go too in depth into each single fixture and talk about what my predictions are and what teams I'd be looking at because I did a free draft video yesterday and I really went in depth in that video and I spoke about every single fixture and what my kind of prediction is. So you guys can go check that video out. I'll leave a link down in the description below if you want to get a little bit more in depth analysis of these fixtures. Whereas in this video, I'm just going to kind of touch on the teams that I think the focus should be on for this upcoming game week. So the first team is going to be Man City, the next team is Leeds, the next team is Aston Villa, and then the three last teams are going to be Spurs, Liverpool, and Everton. So speaking of Man City, I'm going to be talking about them a little bit later on, so not going to cover them too much, but I definitely want to also touch on Leeds a little bit later on, because as I mentioned, those budget strikers, hint hint, Bamford is definitely going to be in there, and you can see that their fixtures from now to the end of the season are really looking good. So I'm going to focus on the bottom four teams there in terms of the fixtures: Aston Villa, Spurs, Liverpool, and Everton. So these are the teams that I favor in each of their respective fixtures. Aston Villa over Crystal Palace. I think if Jack Grealish is back from that injury, there is a little bit of a rumor that he could potentially be back for blank game week 36, but maybe just stay tuned to those press conferences from the Aston Villa manager either on Thursday or Friday, and then we can get a better indication on what our expectations could be. But if Jack Grealish is back, that not only makes him a good option, but also the players around him. I mean, Ollie Watkins will definitely see some success under Jack Grealish, and also from a defensive point of view, kind of takes a little bit more pressure off the defense because he's quite good at holding onto the ball, so it only makes Aston Villa a better option. And against the Crystal Palace side that have been a little bit hit or miss, I mean, we saw last night against Southampton that they definitely can be beat quite convincingly, so maybe this is Aston Villa's turn to get a really good result against Crystal Palace. The next team, Spurs. I mean, Spurs versus Wolves. I don't know if this game is going to be as high scoring as maybe people predict, but we will talk about that a little bit later on when I talk about Harry Kane as a potential captaincy option. Liverpool versus West Brom, great options here. As mentioned in the free draft though, that I don't think that this is a fixture to target if you want to go for some differentials. Maybe like a Sadio Mane if you want to go differential, but I think most people should own someone like a Trent and also a Mo Salah. Then going on to Everton, which I think are rivaling Man City there for the best fixture of blank game week 36, and you're going to see on the points predictions for the captaincy, the Everton options are actually rated quite highly. So if you are looking maybe for a free transfer for this upcoming blank, I would potentially look at Everton options because they have a great fixture against Southampton, and then they have a good fixture in game week 37 as well. Unfortunately, I think they play Man City on the final day, a game week 38, which is going to put a little bit of a spanner in the works there because that's definitely not a great fixture. But for these next two, I think those Everton assets, such as maybe a Calvert-Lewin, a Lucas Digne, are definitely where your attention should be. So in terms of these fixtures, really nice fixtures to go for if you are looking for some differentials. We have a team like a Man City with a great fixture against Newcastle, and that's why later on we'll be talking about why you guys should maybe be looking at those Man City assets and maybe even look at a captaincy option in terms of De Bruyne or maybe a Mahrez. But in terms of the other fixtures, not too much to talk about there, only the ones that I've kind of highlighted. I think that you guys should be looking at for those potential free transfers and those potential fixtures that I think that you guys should be targeting. Now moving on to the fixture ratings from fantasyfootballhub.co.uk, and what we're going to do, as we usually do in these ultimate guides, is first we're going to look at the attacking rating, and then secondly we're going to look at the defensive rating. So from an attacking point of view here, you can see that the stats are backing up my kind of prediction for the best fixture of blank game week 36, and you can see Everton are rated a lot higher than any other opposition. I was actually a little bit surprised here to see that Man City were 5th on the log for this best attacking returns at only a 1.8, and Everton have a 2.2. So if you're looking for an attacking option, Everton look like quite a safe kind of pick to go for, and then also have Liverpool Aston Villa, Burnley maybe even there, but I do think that this is kind of taking the season as a whole, and with a side like Leeds, defensively they have been a lot better. There's been a lot of defensive improvement in not only in terms of the stats, but also the quality of play there from a defensive point of view. So I mean, Burnley versus Leeds, I wouldn't put too much faith in maybe a Burnley attacking return there, but I mean, Chris Wood has been playing exceptionally right now, so maybe he could maybe squeak a goal there if you are an owner, but I think I would definitely target the top 5 teams besides Burnley. So Everton, Liverpool, Aston Villa, Man City, I'm expecting all of those teams to probably score in this game, so I think that those attacking options should be quite safe. But it might be a little bit surprising here to see Everton rated so highly because just from an attacking point of view, they're not the most attacking side in the world. So you're not really going to look at them to maybe score 5 goals, but maybe against Sheffield United, we could be surprised and we could end up with like a DCL hat-trick or something, which I will take if I manage to bring him in. The rest of the teams, I'm not going to talk about them too much because it's a little bit of a self-explanatory nature here. These fixtures, while they might not be the best in the world, that definitely doesn't mean the teams from them can't end up scoring. And I think a good example there is probably going to be the Spurs game. Spurs versus Wolves, it's only rated at a 1.5 for Spurs in terms of the attacking returns, and I think a lot of people would have maybe been expecting a lot higher there. But that kind of backs up my own prediction that maybe that Wolves Spurs game isn't going to be as high scoring as maybe people think, and that's why maybe Harry Kane or maybe one of the Spurs assets like a Heung-min Son might not be the best captain options going into blank game week 36. But this is the attacking fixtures. Now let's go on to the defensive fixtures. So from a defensive point of view, yet again we see Everton rated at the top there. They actually shared on a clean sheet prediction with Southampton. So that Southampton game against Fulham, I don't know how much I'd look into that because from a defensive point of view, Southampton have been quite bad recently, so I could maybe expect Fulham to score. But then also Fulham, they've just been newly relegated as of this week, so they're going to be quite gutted after that. So it's going to be quite interesting to see how they may be set up. We've spoken about this in quite a lot of detail with maybe a relegated side actually playing better once they've been relegated, because then there's no pressure. They're going to play free-flowing football, maybe a more of attacking style, because they got nothing to lose. So that's why I wouldn't be backing against too many relegated sides, only maybe Sheffield United, and that's why I think Everton are quite highly rated here, because Sheffield United haven't been great this whole season from an attacking point of view. So Everton from a defensive point of view, you got to look at them to get a couple of clean sheets. I would then kind of put in the attacking returns as well from a defender, maybe a player like a Coleman or Lucas Digne. It's probably going to be the best of both worlds if you are maybe targeting an Everton defender. A nice little interesting option is probably going to be Aston Villa at number 4 there, because most of you guys probably own a Martinez in goal, so I'd be really confident about getting a clean sheet and maybe some save points from him. So it's a really good week to own maybe an Aston Villa defender. Then also we see Burnley against Leeds, and then this is one of those games that I don't think it exactly tells the truth in terms of a prediction, because Leeds attack has been great this season, so I wouldn't favor too many Burnley clean sheets if I did own them, and I am kind of an owner of Lowton, so I'm not really backing a clean sheet too much from him. But in terms of the defenses, they are quite close here, so you guys can kind of just pick whichever team you think is going to score well. The one I wanted to also highlight is maybe from a Liverpool point of view. A lot of people have been having those Liverpool defenders. Well, I do think the ceiling for maybe a Trent Alexander-Arnold or maybe a Robertson looks like it can be quite good. I wouldn't be bringing in Liverpool options this week. I just kind of think that West Bromwich Albion are probably going to play quite an attacking style against Liverpool, maybe on a counter-attack that Liverpool have been quite susceptible to. So I wouldn't be favoring a Liverpool clean sheet too much, but in terms of the attacking returns, I mean, Trent, he can always kind of get an assist, get a goal that brings up that clean sheet points and kind of exceeds those clean sheet points anyway. So I wouldn't be too worried about that, but I don't think I'd be kind of targeting the Liverpool defenders too much for blank game week 36. Now moving on to the first big talking point, or talking point that's specific to this upcoming game week, and that's going to be which Man City option you guys should be going for. So I mentioned already, Man City play Newcastle, if not the best, one of the best fixtures of blank game week 36. So I think even from a captaincy point of view, if you guys are looking for differential from a captaincy or maybe a free transfer point of view, I think that those Man City assets should be where it's at. And that's just because not a lot of people own them. They're actually quite differential considering Man City did win the Premier League this season, so quite low scoring, but I think that's just down to that old pep roulette there with that rotation of the players. So my kind of prediction of what side is going to face Newcastle is going to be the same side that played in the Champions League. So if you guys do remember, Man City played PSG in the Champions League, and they kind of came out of that victorious. So it shows that that side is probably the most assured starting 11 for Pep Guardiola, and the reason why I'm saying this is that they still have to play from now to the end of the season, and that's just because the Champions League final happens after game week 38. So you don't want to kind of rest all your main players and then they get out of form, don't have match fitness. So if you guys did watch Man City this weekend, it was quite a heavily rotated squad. So we saw a lot of rotation there. Aguero, Jesus both starting, whereas both of those players were benched. We had Sterling starting, where I don't think he's going to be in the best 11 of Pep Guardiola this season. So this is my kind of prediction, is I think that the Champions League side that started the second leg is going to be facing Newcastle. And what that means is it means we've got Edison in goal, kind of a no-brainer there, unless there might be a little bit of rotation because they've already wrapped up the Premier League. But the back line, as a prediction, is going to be Kyle Walker, John Stones, Ruben Diaz, and then Zinchenko. So you guys, if you own Benjamin Mendy, if you own Cancelo, I would just simply keep them because I think there's a good chance that they could play. But I think if I had to kind of predict on a free at who to start, I would go with Kyle Walker or go with Zinchenko because I always favor those fullback positions. Then going on to the attack, De Bruyne is a little bit of an interesting one because apparently he is a little bit injured right now, but it seems like it was just a little bit of a knock, maybe a little bit of muscle fatigue. So I would wait for Pep Guardiola's press conference to get more indication if he's back in training, if he's going to be fit for this game, because if he is fit, I do think he starts. But the two options that I want to focus on here are going to be Mahrez and then also Foden. I think that Mahrez and Foden are basically guaranteed to start this week against Newcastle, and I mean any Man City player against Newcastle that's almost guaranteed to start, I think are good options to go for. So if you want to go for a Man City attacker, Mahrez, Foden, those would be my two recommendations. I think budget might play a role in here. If you can afford Mahrez, I would say go for him because I think he might be a little bit more assured of getting returns. But then Foden has had an absolutely spectacular season, a really breakout season for him. So I think that if you can't afford a Mahrez and maybe need a cheaper option, a Foden is going to be where it's at. So that's my kind of two recommendations that I would go for. Obviously, we could have Pep Roulette as we always do, and no players basically guaranteed to start, not even Edison this week, I would say. But I do think in terms of keeping these players match fit, keeping these players rotated and looking strong for that Champions League final, my kind of safe prediction would be look at this Champions League squad, and that's who I would go for. In terms of the captaincy, if you guys want to go differential, we'll speak about that a little bit later on, but I heavily favor a really good Man City result here. And in history, if you guys do recall, I think Sergio Aguero one season scored 5 goals against Newcastle. So if you're going to go for a little bit of a nostalgia pick, maybe pick another Man City option because I don't know if Aguero is going to be starting this upcoming game week. But that's enough for the Man City options. Let's get on and talk about some budget strikers. So going over the budget forwards, and I think I will kind of just link in my point about Jamie Vardy here because I didn't want to go over Jamie Vardy specifically for his own talking point because in my opinion, it's kind of a no-brainer. Get Jamie Vardy out. He's not looking great. They have an upcoming blank game week, and the player that I'll be looking at to bring in is going to be one man and one man only, and that's going to be Calvert-Lewin. You could always take a punt, maybe a Jesus, maybe an Aguero, but with Calvert-Lewin nailed to start against a Sheffield United side that's been looking really poor this entire season, that's just simply not an opportunity I would pass up. So Jamie Vardy, DCL, no-brainer there. But now let's get on and talk about some more budget options, and these could be maybe you want to replace Iheanacho, maybe you want to upgrade maybe a 4.5 like a Brewster to maybe a budget option. Which budget option should you guys be going for? This has been made a little bit easier unfortunately because of Callum Wilson. He's had a season-ending injury unfortunately, so he's completely out of the equation. If you guys own Callum Wilson, take him out. If you brought him in already, it's a little bit unfortunate, but that's just sometimes what happens with these early transfers. But the three options right now that I would favor from a budget point of view in that attacking department are going to be Ollie Watkins from Aston Villa, Chris Wood from Burnley, and then finally Patrick Bamford from Leeds. So right off the bat, as I mentioned when we went over the fixtures, Leeds have really good fixtures from now to the end of the season. They face Burnley, they face Southampton, and they face West Brom. And those three sides defensively haven't been great recently all this entire season. So if I want to go for one option strictly on fixtures, I can't help but recommend Patrick Bamford here. I mean, Leeds, I know their attack has maybe receded a little bit, but you now have Rafinha back in that starting 11, back from his injury. That's only going to improve Leeds going forward, and I think that's going to only improve Patrick Bamford's numbers, especially in terms of those goals and those assists. So that would be my recommendation. Hands down, I think Patrick Bamford is who you guys should be going for. Now the next two, Chris Wood, Ollie Watkins, are a little bit tougher. Spoke about Ollie Watkins with Jack Grealish back. Maybe his stats improve, maybe his goal scoring improves, but the thing about Ollie Watkins that I always can remember is that he's not the best finisher, and when you're facing a side like Chelsea, I think that finishing has to be on point. But then before that, Crystal Palace, which is a great fixture fixture, I would definitely target that. But then also Spurs. Now Spurs, hit or miss side. Sometimes they're great defensively, sometimes they're not great. And it's going to be interesting to see where Spurs are in game week 37, if they're going to manage to maybe get a top 4 spot, or if that's completely out of reach. But the one player I would definitely be looking at for that fixture is going to be Harry Kane, on the run for the golden boot. But then we also have another striker in terms of Ollie Watkins that could also do well. But I think Ollie Watkins probably would come in at second place for me. I just think that in terms of the fixtures, not the best in the world, and also Aston Villa and his finishing sometimes leave a little bit to be desired from an attacking point of view. Then the final player, Chris Wood, that we're going to be talking about. Now Chris Wood, although he's been playing quite well, and Burnley have actually switched it from defensively good to attacking wise, they've been quite solid. But then I think against Leeds in game week 36, maybe if this fixture happened early in the season, I would have a different kind of thought about it. But because Leeds have improved so much defensively, I don't think I'd be favouring him in this fixture. And then they face Liverpool, and we don't really know where Liverpool are going to be at in game week 37. It might be a must-win game for them. I know that Burnley do fancy their chances against Liverpool. We saw that early on in the season, but I do think that Liverpool will be all guns blazing in that fixture, and they should get quite a good performance if they have to get that top 4 spot. Finally, in game week 36, Sheffield United, I mean, obviously you guys want to target that fixture, but I think when you have Patrick Bamford against West Brom in that same fixture, that could be quite a good fixture as well. So I think Patrick Bamford definitely number 1 on my radar, and then I'd probably put Ollie Watkins second, and then Chris Wood in that number 3 spot. But I mean, all 3 of these strikers should probably do well from now to the end of the season, so I don't think you can really go wrong with any of them. But if I had to kind of predict who would score the most, I think I have to give it to the lead striker, Patrick Bamford. So now going on to a more specific talking point for blank game week 36, and that's going to be hits. Should you guys be taking hits this game week? I know that a lot of you might not have a full starting 11. That might be a repercussion of going for some hits in double game week 35 to kind of get the best players in that selection. But we do have a couple of players that are blanking. We've got the United assets blanking, we've got the Chelsea assets blanking, we've got the Leicester options blanking. So a lot of high tier sides there that a lot of us do own those assets are not having a fixture in blank game week 36. So I would kind of predict that a lot of people are going to be taking hits this week. So if you guys do have a full starting 11, I think that you're basically guaranteed to get a green arrow at the start of the game week because of just how many hits people are going to be taking. Now, should you be taking hits? Should you not be? I'm going to bring in my classic analogy here of a blank game week player. If you're taking out a blank game week player and bringing a player in that plays, that -4 hit only becomes a -2 because of hopefully the player that you bring in gets 2 appearance points. So yes, a -4 hit is now a -2, but the thing about taking a hit this late in the season is that it increases your risk of them not returning or them overtaking the player that you managed to bring in. And this is just basic maths. Less chance of scoring is less probability of getting a score, and therefore the risk is a lot higher. But unfortunately, with this blank game week, I think a lot of people are going to be taking hits, and I think if the player that you bring in has a great fixture in blank game week 36, game week 37, and game week 38, that's perfectly fine in my opinion. Another thing to take into account is that if you are bringing a player in for a hit and then captaining them, that also decreases the risk of them potentially performing because obviously their points are doubled. And I think a player like a Mahrez, a Foden, a De Bruyne, those are players that are going to be quite useful for taking a hit and then captaining them because I think that they should get quite a couple returns. But I wouldn't be taking too many hits. I think as long as you get about 10 players, that should be perfectly fine. I know we all strive for 11 players for the blank game week, but sometimes that just isn't the case. And I would especially wouldn't be doing it if you're taking out a player that has a great game week 37 and 38 for a player that doesn't have a good game week 30 and 38. That's just kind of my thinking behind it, is take the last 3 game weeks of the season as a whole and don't just look at this blank game week and go for kind of a player that focuses on this game week, because that's kind of what's happened in double game week 35, and you might have been looking at a player that hasn't performed quite well like a Wilfried Zaha, and then you want to take him out anyway because he doesn't have great fixtures. Just be kind of sensible. Obviously your team is your own scenario. If you only have 5 players, I would recommend probably taking some hits. As I said, a -4 hit is only a -2 in a blank game week with those certain conditions. Now moving on to the final talking point of the video, we're going to be touching on captaincy and what captaincy options you guys should be looking at. So I've got my 3 favorite options here, inverted commas. We'll talk about Calvert-Lewin peeking over Harry Kane's shoulder there, but the 3 options I would look at is going to be Mahrez against Newcastle away. Now the only reason I went for Mahrez over Kevin De Bruyne is because currently he is yellow flagged, as I mentioned, so maybe just keep that in your mind. But if Kevin De Bruyne was back from that injury, I think that he would be my best option to go for from a Man City point of view. But Mahrez, Foden, these 2 Man City assets should be quite good, and I definitely think that if I was looking to chase up my mini leagues or my overall ranks, I would look at a Man City option. So if I had to think of a high ceiling, I think that Man City definitely have that high ceiling in terms of a squad, and that's why I would focus them. The next player is going to be Mo Salah against West Bromwich Albion away. Now there's kind of 2 sides to this debate, because obviously obviously United face Liverpool tomorrow, and if United do beat Liverpool, I think that Liverpool will be out of that top 4 conversation. But then obviously you do have Mo Salah still chasing after that golden boot, so whichever side you look at it, there probably is a positive from Liverpool point of view and a Mo Salah point of view. So I think against West Bromwich Albion, this should be quite a good game for them. And West Brom have also been relegated, so going to be quite interesting to see how they play. Might not be as defensive as they've been in previous game weeks, and that could be absolute eyes lit up for Mo Salah in that point of view, and he should get a couple returns in that case. And then the final player is going to be Harry Kane against Wolves. Now, Harry Kane is definitely not my favorite option this week, because I just think against Wolves that game's going to be a little bit closer than maybe people are expecting, and that's why I've got DCL peering over his shoulder there, because I really wanted to replace Kane with DCL. But I'm pretty sure there would have been a bunch of you guys in the comments down below saying, how can't you captain Harry Kane against Wolves when he's chasing the golden boot? But I just kind of have a feeling, I know that DCL, we did triple captain him and he didn't return us the points, but I think against a Sheffield United side that have been really poor, if you're going to also look at a differential, DCL should be getting your attention. That's why I've gone for these 4 options, but I think I definitely am favoring kind of maybe taking a punt on a Man City option. The only thing is, if you bring a Man City option in, they're probably not going to play every single game from now to the end of the season, which is a little bit annoying that they're not nailed, but that's just kind of the risk you do take if you're going to be looking at bringing in a Man City option. But now let's get on and look at the predictions. So going over the Fantasy Football Hub predictor tool, and what we do is we look at the prediction points, because obviously the player that provides the biggest prediction probably should be your best captain. And this week it's going to be Mo Salah. Mo Salah is always on the top of the pyramid here, and no pun intended there, because he just has such good stats. So 6.7 predicted, Harry Kane the next with 6.2, and then we do see a little bit of a drop off between 3rd and 4th spots. We've got Calvert-Lewin at 5.1, and then we also have Mahrez at 5. But the interesting thing about Mahrez is that this is a prediction that he will only start 65 minutes, and I do think if he does play, he'll get a little bit more than that, so that could boost his prediction up a little bit. And Kevin De Bruyne isn't here, as I mentioned, because he currently is injured. So any of these 4 options this week, I think are going to be really safe. I'm hoping for maybe an interesting captaincy dynamic this week, where we do have quite a split captaincy option, so that if your captain does bang, the differential point of view is going to be at a maximum, and hopefully we can boost up those ranks. But as I mentioned, all 4 of these options I think should be quite good. It just kind of depends where you are in your mini leagues, in your overall ranks. If you're comfortable with it, maybe go for a Kane or a Salah, but if you're not, I think a Man City or an Everton option are quite appealing options to go for. So this is basically wrap up the video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like it if you did, and subscribe if you have not subscribed yet. I'll be seeing you guys tomorrow, where we do look at taking a -4 hit for 3 new transfers in my team selection for blank game week 36. So hopefully I see you guys over there. Otherwise, I'll check you guys on Twitter at Dayvy FPL, and I'll be signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers, bye.